Hello my friends, Grim here. I hope you are so well today. Welcome to another Premodern video. Thank you for being with me as we go back to our mid-range roots, but we're putting a twist on things. We're playing some Machine Head, some classic black-red mid-range with a main deck playset of Tsabo's Web. We'll get into the theory behind this and we'll get into a full deck tech shortly, but thank you so much for supporting the content because without you guys doing so, and specifically in this case using the Mana Traders affiliate link, I would never have gotten a full sponsorship from Mana Traders, and therefore I couldn't quite play a list like this. So thank you so much guys for doing that. If you want to save yourself a ton of money and support the content, you can follow the links below to do so. Alright guys, so Premodern is a format where you play things that are, kind of high variance when they're powerful, or kind of low power when they're high floor, right? That is the general principle. And permanents that are genuine 2-for-1s are quite rare. That is why a card like Ravenous Rats is quite good, actually, in this format in mid-range decks. We're not playing that here today, but I digress. Same concept applies, of course, to Tsabo's Web. It is a 2-mana, 2 colorless mana for that matter, that replaces itself. And the floor is that it does exactly that, and the ceiling is that it just single-handedly wins you the game, with the opponent being totally locked out of lands if they're a utility-rich land base. So, obviously, there will be some middle ground as well, where you can cripple them long enough to exploit the stumble, or you can just have recurring value in the course of a long game that eventually lets you win the War of Attrition. Lots of different ways it can break, but the point is Tsabo's Web is a pretty free inclusion in many decks that do not themselves want or need so many utility lands. Now that brings us to playing it in Machine Head, because Tsabo's Web has come up a lot lately in some of my discussions. People in the Worm channel on the Discord are talking about Jund Worm and Junk Worm, in whether playing Tsabo's Web there makes a lot of sense, because Treetop Village is really hard to accommodate. I totally agree with that. My buddy Kamitech, shout out to you, my friend, longtime friend of the channel, went 7-0 recently with a big blue-white control deck in a local tournament, and he also is main decking Tsabo's Web and eschewing the utility lands. Now, as for myself, when I was freshly burned out from Modern, and I just dabbled a little bit in Premodern before going into a long layoff with Magic, I also had that thought about Web, and it's never really left my head. And back then, I was looking at all the different mid-range decks, and I looked at Machine Head, and I said, I don't really love Gitu Encampment in this deck, I don't really love Spawning Pool, and even Mishra's Factory and Wasteland, they feel very awkward here when you're trying to maybe hold up reactive cards or effects that are also somewhat color intensive, like Lightning Bolt, Grim Lavamancer, Terminate, Red Blast, while at the same time those are the kind of the attractions to splashing this color, right? So I said back then, what if we don't play any of those lands? What if we just play Tsabo's Web instead, and we focus our land base on color fixing, and then we focus our spells on whatever is actually good, while being able to realistically accommodate them? So this is my first draft and my first attempt to do such a thing. That's the theory behind it. Let's do a quick line by line, see exactly what the 75 looks like. For Duress in 3 Cabal Therapy. You guys know me, I don't really love the 4th Cabal Therapy if we're not heavily synergizing it with like Wall of Blossoms or Rats or something like that, and even then sometimes I won't play it. So I love 7 discard spells in this particular shell. 2 copies of Curse Scroll and 2 copies of Lavamancer both allow us to have repeated value in different ways. Lavaman is more of the early play where you can ride him to victory while you're kind of accumulating cards in your hand and doing other things. Curse Scroll more of a late game play. Both of them provide reach and board control and tactical flexibility, as does the 4 of Lightning Bolt. Very strong card. Obviously, we are including it here. 3 copies of Terminate and 1 Diabolic Edict would be my preferred 2-drop removal split to supplement the Bolts, Scrolls, and Lavamen with some harder removal, rather than the full 4 Terminate. Sometimes you really do just need an Edict effect, and of course it's a slightly friendlier casting cost as well. We have our old Stalwart, Withered Wretch, and Nantuko Shade, splitting duty, 3 ofs at the 2-drop slot. These are our mana sinks. These are cards that are going to be very demanding in terms of color production. Double black on turn 2 is one of the challenges that this mana base needs to try to meet, but they're both excellent in different ways. Of course, Wretch cleaning up opposing graveyards, both in terms of combo and value and everything in between, and Nantuko Shade going nice and tall, giving us a super quick win condition if he he is the last thing standing when the dust settles. We do, as mentioned, have the full 4-play set of Tsabo's Web. It could be that over time, in a deck like this, 2 or 3 is more optimal, but I'm here to test it, so let's just let it rip. 4 copies of Hippie. There's no Dark Ritual, so you might question this, but I think this is still a very good companion, of course, to everything else we're doing. It's something that without Ritual, you maybe just side out a little bit more often, especially on the draw, but it's still a very competitive card, and we have 2 copies each of Phyrexian Arena and Graveborn Muse, so do not underestimate the amount of card draw we have in this deck. It's definitely above average for a Machine Head deck, for such effects accompanying, again, the 4 webs cantripping us through turn 2 if we don't need to do other things. The land base. The land base is, as mentioned, a bit of a challenge, actually, in a couple ways. We have 23 lands total, 21 of which can produce black, although the 2 Tainted Peaks only alongside a swamp, so it's hard to know exactly how to count that mathematically. And we only have 12 red sources. I was tempted to go up to 13, down to 20 black sources, but again, mission 1 is to be able to begin by making sure we're accommodating the double black pips that are everywhere, and then from there, if we need to, add a little bit more red production to the mix, I think that is okay. Remember, we're going turn 1 duress and turn 2 threat a lot of the time. We need the double black for those threats, and if we're playing a non-discard into threat game, often we'll be casting Tsabo's Web. So if we don't have red right away, maybe we are doing the black thing and we don't need it, or maybe the web will help us find it. You know what I mean? So we'll see how it all goes. The other concern with the land base, of course, the Sulphurous Springs. I was just renting the cards, and for some reason today I didn't like the look of the white-bordered 7th edition Sulphurous Springs, so to that end we play a newfangled promo, and forgive me for that, but also it gives me an excuse to play a new old frame style of land. What is this from? Innistrad Remastered, yeah. These are really cool. I mean, Jung Park is a great artist. They're just, they're a little outside the pre-modern milieu, but we've got some objectively cool-looking swamps there, again, from Jung Park, and a beautiful red moon depicted in this mountain from Sam White. So you guys let me know what you think about those aesthetic choices, as always. And the sideboard is very straightforwardly powerful. It's a classic Grim Gaming sideboard where we mix it up with, instead of maybe going 3 Gloom, 3 Dystopia, we do 2 of each, and we add in a Perish and a Soul Rend alongside those for just a different angle, a different variety of color hate. And we have 2 copies only of Engineered Plague rather than a perhaps more traditional 3 or 4. Reason being, of course, with all of the small creature control potential in the main deck, maybe this slot is more realistically dedicated to other things. Some of those other things being Tormod's Crypt, Phyrexian Furnace, 2 copies of Overload, and 3 copies of Pyroblast/Red Elemental Blast. So that is the list, my friends. I'm excited to play this deck, and let's get straight into it. Alrighty. It is a keep, but it is a somewhat sketchy 2-lander because we really need a dual land for this to be baseline functional, and then beyond that we also have mana sinks and a 4-drop, so we kind of need lands regardless. So we're against Blue-Green Madness. One's got Roar of the Worm, Deep Analysis, and Gush with a 2-lander. Not the most appetizing of targets here. I think we just take the Gush, though. I think we just take the Gush and get rid of the 2-for-1 on our own terms, whereas, Deep Analysis, if we bin that, it'll help them curve out, and Roar of the Worm is something they just kind of want to bin on their own anyway, so they will hardcast a Root Walla. That means there's probably not a discard outlet in sight. And lucky for us, we have another land. So, Grim Lavamancer is going to be excellent here. I think we're supposed to get him down, even though it is not quite as mana efficient as some other plays. But resolving him under permission, I think, is going to be pretty key here. It's going to stop the opponent from doing a lot of what they would otherwise want to do with what might be some of their better draws. And if they just only attack for 1, we can attack back that way, right? They are going to pump. Interesting. So they're just giving up the Ghost on the Root Walla right away. They're going to force us to spend our turn doing that, and they're going to think, hey, we can't really we're not going to win that game of chicken, right? So be it. So let's play a Withered Wretch. We do that before we activate the Lava Man, I suppose, to beat a Daze, and then we get to kill the Lizard. So it's all looking pretty good for us. We've got a Terminate in hand now as well. I mean, that doesn't suck. So opponent did find a third land. They didn't necessarily have that rolled up, but we've got ourselves a Duress. Interesting. I think we're probably supposed to use that main phase here. We know there are targets. We don't want to walk into like a frantic search and like a lizard or two dumped, right? So let's just see what they've got before we decide what else to do. It does mean we're, of course, not casting Nantuko Shade, but this way we're operating with maximal information. Circular Logic. Well, we can't quite beat that. Almost can beat it with a Wretch. If we had a fourth land, we could, right? So, fair enough. But that means we've got the all clear to attack, and we will be holding up Terminate, but more realistically just kind of cleaning up the graveyard with Wretch as we go. Putting things in our own bin, taking things out of theirs. You'll love to see that one. Wild Mongrel. Got it. Alright, well, yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy to terminate that next turn. So once again, with Daze in mind, I suppose we just spend our turn on Withered Wretch and then plan to untap, terminate, take it from there. Alright, all good. Terminate resolves. Obviously, we would love to find something besides another clunky Nantuko here. But we can't complain because we're getting such repeated value out of the things that we are doing that, although it could be better, it's still pretty darn good. Alright, opponent puts an island back down, passes through the turn. We eat a little more on the end step. Yeah, so interesting call here. I think I'm going to split the difference between a few different things. I'm just going to serve with the Wretch here and see what happens. Should probably have played a land first, actually. But yeah, that's fine. No effects, so cool. We'll just play a Nantuko Shade. In this way, we can kind of compete over a Circular Logic. We can hold up the Lava Man activation. We can just get another threat down. We can just activate Wretch a couple more times. Like, there's a lot to like here. Now, we don't want to use the Lava Man activation until we have to, right? Like, it's important board control, potentially, so opponent will go Deep Analysis, as we thought they might, so it's time to just, obviously, gobble the back half of that. And another card with a Wretch, as we continue our many strong plays here. We got another Terminate as well. So I think maybe it's correct to actually just kind of all in here. Put them to a point where they're not realistically coming back from this. So what all-inning looks like in this context is activating Shade 3 times. We could also have again played another Shade, that would be fine as well. Lots of different ways you could play it. Connecting with the Lava Man for 1, keeping his reach in the back pocket, keeping 1 Wretch activation open. They're just not getting out of this, right? Careful study. They've been Roar, and then, obviously that's good value. But we've got our Terminate ready for that guy. Untap. Terminate. Go to game 2. Against Blue-Green Madness, Tormod's Crypt, Phyrexian Furnace, Pyroblast, Red Blast, Dystopia, Perish. I don't think there's room for Engineered play because we have a lot to do, and because we also probably don't really have that many bad cards now, do we? Unfortunately, I guess this is not really a Tsabo's Web matchup, to my knowledge. I know Madness can spice a few things in here and there, but I suppose we're probably just cutting them until we see otherwise. And again, lots of different really good cards here, so we're going to have to cut some stuff that's totally fine. I'm going to cut a Cabal Therapy because we've got the Red Blast coming in. I'm going to cut a single Hippie on the draw. I don't know. Nantuko Shade was incredible there, but I could actually see trimming one here too. We just have so much to do. Yeah, and with our Dystopias and Perishes, I'm going to cut even further down on discard. I just don't want to, like, lose a top deck war at this point, right? That's kind of, like, my primary concern. So I'll go down 2 Hippies and 2 Cabal Therapies and cut all the Tsabo's Webs, and we can easily reconfigure for Game 3 certain things like the Engineered Plagues that are on the bench, and the Hippies do get better in Game 3. We might see something that surprises us, you know. Alrighty, so OP goes Island Pass, so let's kick it off with a Duress. We've got a sweet hand. 4 lands, 4 spells after our first draw step, and we see Foil Gush, Circular Logic, Frantic Search, and Wild Mongrel. There's a lot there to like. There's definitely a lot there to like. Let's do what we did last game. I'm just going to take the Gush. We're going to prevent the most shenanigans and probably accrue the most value in the long game this way. Alright. 5th land is a little excessive, for sure. I'm going to try to stick a Shade here. It's fine kind of with whatever happens, but it does stick. Aquamoeba. Got it. Alright, oh gosh, another land. That's not very exciting now, is it? As it stands, we can become a 5/4, so maybe we just play... Maybe we just go land... Bluff attack. Bluffing the pump, that is. And if they let it through, which they do, then it's time for a Hippie, who is, again, of somewhat questionable utility overall in this matchup. Sometimes it can do the discarding for them, but they have discard outlets here. That's not really their problem. Aquamoeba swinging back, that's fine. They got a Root Walla, sure, that's good. And 3 damage comes across as well. But they're still not able to cast Frantic Search or even Foil, as far as we know, as far as things stand. And they cannot pump the Root Walla either. Alright, so let's come across here. OP with no blocks, eh? Makes sense. So Hippie's going to knock the Wild Mongrel out of there. That's pretty sweet. Now we get to go Phyrexian Arena, holding up our Pyroblast. Alright, let's see who wins. Does OP have anything else? They have another Circular Logic. Okay, yep, solid. They win this round. Definitely they win this round. Fair. Okay, you could argue that we should have let the Hippie do a little more attriting before we went for that. If we just flood from here, that could, I suppose, end up losing us the game. But if we just flood from here, they're probably just dying horribly to Nantuko Shade, right? So their hand is Foil, Frantic Search, 1 unknown, and we are in fact on the Flood Horribly plan. So worth noting that that's happening, but again, The repeated power of our threats is too much, and that is the match. OP just concedes before they get smashed by the hippie in the shade. So yeah, that was kind of nice. Game 1 we had a little bit of everything, and Game 2 we got in underneath their clunk. Both two-color decks, both can have a fail rate. They experienced their color production fail rate there, and it enabled us to just kind of like do enough to get there. Again, despite the flood. So Nantuko Shade with the Go Tall plan, and Hippie with the repeated attrition. Even though, again, I could have picked a different time for the battle with Phyrexian Arena, it worked out just fine. Proactivity and mana sync status, repeated value out of your threats. Definitely really, really strong stuff. Alright, my friends, we've kept a 7 that is kind of high variance insofar as it's got just like no creatures, nothing proactive right now. We have 2 Cabal therapies, they could become proactive if we know what we're against. But until such time as we do, we're just kind of like sitting on the Diabolic Edict, waiting for more information, waiting for good draws off the top. But it is a functional hand with a type of disruption that we want. The 3rd Cabal therapy. I am tempted to use one, but I'm not going to. I think we just want to kind of maybe even use them all on one turn next turn. I'm going to play a Sulphurous Springs as well, because we might be triple therapying next turn, so we don't want to play Mountain. And also, I was going to say, I don't mind if they want to just Wasteland me and say go. Alright, so Swamp Mishra's Factory. I'm going to just begin with a therapy naming Hippie, which I think is kind of likely, and then take it from there. We do get 2 Hippies, well that's a good start. Lavaborn Muse and Blazing Spectre and Lightning Bolt are the other cards in hand, so yeah, let's just take the threats, right? Extremely hilarious turn of triple Cabal therapy. Finishes in a nice 4 for 3 in our favor. Now, we do still have a Diabolic Edict in hand, of course, so it was somewhat tempting, I guess, to take Lightning Bolt, but still not really, because we know we can hit the factory, if nothing else, with it, right? And we know they're going to draw more threats. So they play Sulphurous Springs, they get in for 2, their hand is Swamp, Lightning Bolt, 1 unknown. And we are just flooding, unfortunately. So it's going to come down to top decks to state the very obvious, but we've taken away so many of their good top decks, whereas our deck is still completely full of ours, right? So we'll Edict the attacking factory. Then maybe they'd like to cast a Duress or a Cabal Therapy of their own. No? Okay. Nantuko Shade. Sure. I guess at this stage we're supposed to hang on to him for a turn so that he can theoretically survive a Lightning Bolt. Obviously that comes at the cost of many other things. Phyrexian Arena is a really nice one for them all the way at 20 when both players are pretty much in top deck mode. Got another Nantuko Shade though, so that's pretty good backup, right? KOP finds Mishra's Factory, and then maybe Duress, Cabal Therapy. Okay, they're probably not going to name Nantuko Shade here. But they could... Yeah, they named Terminate. That's a pretty solid name, I'd say. It's not a card they've seen yet that they know is in our deck. And they know is reactive, and therefore might realistically be sitting in hand. They can obviously flash back with the Factory now to get that. And indeed they do. So it's a really nice turn for the opponent, but if we can force that Lightning Bolt out on our own terms, then it is anybody's game. I don't hate the draw of Curse Scroll. Alright, so we come across with a Shade, we pump twice. We're still holding up enough But they find just a Terminator of their own. Yeah, that stinks. You hate to see that one. So they handled both of our shades so cleanly. Well, when you're drawing 2 cards per turn and you're a red-black deck, that is not entirely unexpected. But still, I would say, you know, fairly unlucky. Alright, well, we drew Hippie, which is not that exciting, but it's something to do. So we get to scroll them for 2 and then play out the Hipster. No need to Cabal Therapy. We'll just let them use their Lightning Bolt if that's what they want. Yep. Alright, so we have pulled ahead on life, which again, with a scroll on the field is not nothing, but we live in fear of them drawing the Rack or Lavaborn Muse. We can draw Phyrexian Arena of our own, though. We'll take that. Now it's our turn. Now it is our turn for the value. Okay, OP goes Dark Ritual. Little scary. This better not be like a massive drain life or something. That would be pretty insane. It might be a skeletal scrying, though, like for kind of like a modest amount. Which would also be pretty good. Yeah, it is scrying for 3. Okay. Interestingly, they left both Sulphurous Springs untapped. I have another Dark Ritual. Whoa. Is this a Lavaborn Muse? It is. It is, it is. Okay, well, the race is on. We take 3 from her trigger. We take another one from our own arena. We draw Swamp and a land. Hate to see it. OP's down to 5. They'll be whiffing with that duress. Muse gets in, we're down to 8. After a fair amount of deliberation, a Hippie hits the field and OP says go. So, curse scroll time. So even if we let the Muse hit, we're at 5. And then 4 from Arena, so we're not dead to a Lightning Bolt, even if they respond to our scroll activation with one, so I think we just take our draw step and see what happens. Tsabo's Web. And Lightning Bolt. Alright, well that's good insurance, I guess. Alright, we're gonna cast Web. This is just fun. Bolt OP. Scroll in response to whatever they do. And that's game. Cool. Alright, very, very close one. The triple Cabal Therapy turn 3 was defining, but the opponent rebuilt really well, and they almost got us. So we're in something like a mirror, and we don't have very much to do because they're a little higher curve. I don't think this is an Engineered Plague matchup. Obviously, it's not anything for the color hate to which we have access. Anti-white, anti-blue, anti-green. Not so much. So we could hedge with an Overload. We're definitely going to play Phyrexian Furnace. I don't think I want Crypt either. So when I say hedge with an Overload, I'm thinking of the Rack, but also they might have Furnaces, they might have Scrolls. But I'm assuming they're a Rack deck, but we didn't actually see that. We don't really have bad cards in the main deck per se, so we're probably just supposed to get a little less discard heavy. So 1 each of Duress and Therapy for a Furnace and an Overload is pretty nice. And then on the draw, do we want to cut like just a singleton Hippie for the second Overload? I think I will. But I could also see not playing that second Overload until we actually see artifacts, right? But if they're playing Lavaborn Muse, they're almost always playing the Rack as well. Yeah, sweet hint. We'll keep. OP's on the mull. We've got 3 lands, both colors present. Nice little duress shade hippie curve if we decide to just curve out like that. Obviously, we may end up bolting something, we may end up holding the shade till later, etc., etc. However, this hand competes really well. OP's gonna ritual out a Phyrexian Arena. I see. Well. Okay, and we draw Curse Scroll. I think that's gotta be the play. That's a good draw. This is gonna pay dividends in the long run. Obviously, they could just have an overload here, but I think I like getting it down under discard, and then our duress is more likely to hit something next turn after they get 2 draws with the Arena. They could, of course, just duress our duress right now as well, but when they've got the turn 1 Arena, there's a lot of different things that can happen. So, again, I think we like getting the scroll down. And they take Lightning Bolt. They're going to leave us with a duress. Or are they? Cabal Therapy? We'll see what they take. They take Nantuko Shade, so we might want to hold our duress here. We'll see what we draw. You just draw Swamp. I wish I drew, like, Tsabo's Web there. Yeah, I'm going to hold the duress. We cannot afford, I think, for it to whiff. And it's not that we really think it would whiff per se, and if they have stuff like Lightning Bolt, then that would have been a reason to duress while they're tapped out. And I kind of sensed the factory. That's why I wanted to draw the web. They got another Arena. Okay, so be it. Well, maybe we would have hit that with our duress. Fascinating. They are all in, my friends. They are all in. We draw Terminate. Sure. I'm still just gonna play the hippie. We're gonna be like max punished for our sequencing if they end up like with an end step bolt here or something, and then they get to untap and just do everything. But let's make them have that. And let's again try not to whiff with our cards while we're getting buried in card advantage by the opponent. And Hippie is going to be a problem for them insofar as he disrupts their card advantage, and just, like, getting clocked for 2 when they're under their own Arena clock is huge, right? Do we take the trade with their factory? I could go either way here. I'm gonna say no. Another land, huh? Another land, another land. Alright, I think they know about the Sulphurous Spring, so we'll begin there. Let's use a duress before Hippie connects. Likely is to get 2 cards out of them this way. They do have a bolt, huh? And then we whiff. Dang. Alright. Alright, hate to see it. Kind of went against my instinct there a little bit, not taking the trade. We'll see how it pans out. Alright, so they play Mountain rather than playing Mishra's Factory. That is because they value the painlessness here. And they do go for that Blazing Spectre, so thankfully we do have the Terminate rolled up. And opponent just scoops to that. So, their own arenas were sealing their fate alongside our Curse Scroll, which is why we were rewarded for playing at turn 1. We didn't have very much agency in that game. We got kind of smoked every single turn, but it was kind of funny in that it really didn't matter. The inevitability was on our side. And unless they maybe, again, found an overload as an out, and able to race us really well from there, yeah, I guess we just kind of had it. So, but when you're drawing arenas like that, you do just kind of have to go for it. And to that end, that's kind of why I like a little bit of a mix of Arena and Muse in a vacuum. Obviously, certain decks will benefit more from one than the other, but in a vacuum, I'd rather see one of each, right, than 2 of one or 2 of the other. So, good games, well played. We take down a pseudo-mirror. Alright, friends, we are keeping. It's alright on the draw, only 2 lands without red, but everything is a 1 or 2 drop in our hand. We're on the draw, so we're likely to hit the third land / the red land sooner than later. We've got web for the I win button potential. And opponent going Flames, yeah. Let's try again. Opponent going Plains into Furnace. That does not fill me with confidence that I'm going to hit with a Cabal Therapy. They also go Sungrass Prairie. It is the green-white equivalent of the Shadowblood Ridge that we, I guess, almost registered here, or I thought about registering. Opponent's going to abeyance us on the upkeep. Okay. We're getting spiced on over here. Fine. You win. No instants, no sorceries, but we can play Nantuko Shade, Withered Wretch, or Web. Without knowing anything, I'm actually going to play Web, and part of the reason there is just simply so that we can see the card in action a little bit more, but obviously we are desperate to draw another land, and there's not one on the top. So if we don't draw one next turn, I'm feeling pretty far behind. If we do, we'll have been rewarded most likely for playing Web, although we have forfeited the, ability to get a threat down and maybe to do some disrupting with Withered Wretch if that's what this calls for. The opponent goes Web right back at us. I see. Touche. And we're rewarded because we got the third land at long last here. So what do we do? What do we do with it? Highest upside here is either Hippie or Arena. I'm going to go Hippie. Certainly can go either way here. But unless opponent has a Daze or something, yeah, they're probably just going to crack their own Furnace and then try to start taking it from there. Alright, OP plays a Chromatic Sphere and says go. I admit, my friends, I have no idea what we are against. Really at a loss here. But let's see if Hippie connects, and if not, it's probably time to just go maybe perhaps Cabal Therapy into Phyrexian Arena. Yeah, they have a Plow. Hate to see it. So I'm just guessing here, but they could be a Wrath of God deck. They could obviously have more Plows. They could have Factor Fiction. I think I'm going to Therapy naming Factor Fiction. I think I mentioned Wrath of God as well as a possibility. That seems likely here. Definitely could be in, Gush territory as well. Gush might be a better name, because, if they had Factor Fiction, would they have played the Chromatic Sphere last turn? I don't know. I'm pulled in a few different directions here. I'm going to change my mind, though, and go Gush. Double Counterspell. Double Counterspell and an Aura Blast. Destroy target enchantment. Draw a card. Oh my goodness. Well, I see. The good news is, we know about that. We're not going to walk into it. Alright, so OP wisely exiles in response with a Furnace, but Prairie and Sphere together are a little awkward. I guess they couldn't manage to get a counterspell going, and they just drew Island for turns, so they are behind. They're behind right now to the Shade. We've got a Lava Man. That's fine. But I think we're supposed to just kind of, ride the Shade here. We'll see if OP cantrips before damage here, but I think... yeah, I think we're just shoving all in. Alright, so OP takes 6 on the end step. They crack the egg. And they crack the Furnace. And at this point, it's just, I think, a kind of a esoteric Bant control deck, basically. I'll cycle Renewed Faith as well, interesting. A lot of less than usual cards over there. It's pretty cool. They play an island and they send it back. Well, They have seen a couple new cards for sure. Okay, I don't know if OP's bluffing or not, but they tap white and then they don't do anything. So I'm going to leave 1 mana open. That way, if they are bluffing, we don't get totally rocked by it. Either way, whether they are or not bluffing, because now we can second main, try a Lava Man, just going to trade with a counterspell probably, or we can hold up Lightning Bolt. We've got to kind of start using the cards in our hand, so I'll just go ahead and trade Lava Man here for a counterspell. The biggest downside here is if they, like, draw Wrath of God or whatever, but yeah, they found Mana Leak, sure. Alright, so again, because we are kind of getting choked up in our hand, I think that's totally fine. 2 more semi-full pumps from the Nantuko Shade and they're dead anyway. And we've got Cabal Therapy. I see, I see. Well, we could main phase that, but they're gonna pretty easily snap off a counterspell, so I think we just go to attacks. Alright, so OP takes another 5. Let's use the Therapy second main, trade with a counterspell. Again, this is kind of good for them in a way. But we just have to, like, probably plan to cast 1 card per turn, and we're getting so close to lethal that, again, I think, like, keeping the Lightning Bolt in the back pocket makes a lot of sense, but they are just dead on board with a Shade. So they need an out, and they need it now. Guy's Blessing to cantrip. Getting Plow back in the deck. Yeah, Aura Blast is a super strong card, but it is kind of narrow to main deck, and I think we were the beneficiaries of that, although we got lucky that we saw it, rather than playing an arena out into it for sure. So again, just kind of seeing Bant control. Makes it a little harder to profitably sideboard. We know there are overload targets. I don't know that we want to be tagging Furnaces and Webs. I'm going to say probably not. They could have other things like Curse Scroll for sure. It's hard to know really what permanents they are going to be playing, but I have to assume Sylvan Library might be in the mix and whatever their win cons might be. So I think I'm going to go for Gloom and Dystopia here, trying to play both. And I suppose even though they're a 3-color deck, all 3 Red Blasts are still quite warranted. Soul Rend, I don't know. Are they playing Meddling Mage? Are they playing Exalted Angel? Or are they playing other things? That is a maybe. I think I'm going to play 1 and trade that in for a Terminate. I think that seems likely to be good. Although if they're just killing us with, like, big green stuff, then that looks a little silly. But we'll try it. So I'm going to cut all 4 Tsabo's webs. It doesn't really seem to matter. I'm going to diversify removal, go down 1 Terminate. Again, we kind of want that as an out to who knows what, but I think cutting a Lightning Bolt here is also fine, and then, because I know the deck so little that we're against, I'm going to cut a single Cabal Therapy. We'll keep all 4 Duress in, we'll still keep 2 Therapy in. Again, the way I see Red Blasts in a black mid-range deck is that they do afford you some room to cut discard that you might not otherwise have, because breaking up the permission is not as much of a concern. We'll keep the 4-land, 3-spell hand that goes Duress into a couple of mana sinks, that's fine. I don't know. Don't know what cards I'm most afraid of, but I'm definitely glad, again, to have the potential for nabbing like a Sylvan Library or something on the draw here. That's exactly what Duress can do for you. Now you have Cabal Therapy as a backup as well. Love to see that one. But we lead, of course, on Duress. Absorb, Abeyance, Blessing, and Humility. Well, maybe we... I mean, Humility is very frightening. but they're pretty far away from it. Tough call here, actually. Part of me wanted to wait and therapy humility a little bit down the line, but it's not like they're likely to have multiples in hand, right? So I'm just going to not mess around and make sure I get that card. There's an argument for taking any of the other three, though, as well. If they only had one of these two different cantrips of Abeyance and Gaia's Blessing, I might have taken that, actually, and hoped to land screw them a little bit. They're probably just going to Abeyance us this turn, which is, I think, okay, because then we just get to play a Withered Wretch or an Antuco Shade, but I'm probably going to make it Wretch. We also do strain their mana a decent bit this way, especially because they're already aggressively cracking the egg. Because they have to accommodate double blue for Absorb, but also get green somewhere for the Blessing. But they're seeing a lot of new cards, so that's fair. We've drawn Pyroblast, seems good. Yep, play Withered Wretch, say go. So their hand is Absorb, Blessing, and 3. Now 4 unknowns after their draw step. We'll see what they do for a land drop. It is Sungrass Prairie, so they're operational, but in kind of an awkward way with respect to their colors. We saw that come back to bite them G1. Are they just going to use the Blessing now before the Wretch gets to compete over their shuffle targets? And so that they can maybe dig for a plow and just keep seeing cards. That is indeed what they do. Alrighty, well, now we can tag the Absorb. So we're going to get in with the Wretch. We're going to therapy taking Absorb, I guess. Even like I just want the guaranteed hit. We can obviously flash back if there's anything too crazy, and it's 3 lands and a mana leak, so no need for that, I guess. We'll just get a shade down underneath said leak. And now the opponent's got big problems unless they can rip a Wrath of God. They got some pretty big problems. Opponent says your draws are too good, GG. Yeah, there's no doubt about it, we did draw well. We just kind of did the classic mid-range thing, aggressive stance, punch a hole in the game plan, get over the line, and Tuco Shade was the solo victor of G1 and was going to kill them in short order there, G2. We had a lot of different things covered, and yeah, again, maybe they don't really play Wrath of God, or maybe they just felt they were already too far behind. They obviously didn't draw it that turn if it's in the deck, right? Regardless, we get there 2-0 against a 3-color control deck. Packing a lot of spice, and a slightly different order of operations in Game 1. They could have easily buried us in all that value. Alright, my friends, we are, I suppose, keeping. Because we've got the Namesake card, we've got the Tsabo's Web, we've got a Bolt for early interaction, and we've got the Hippie to complete our 1-2-3 curve. Alright, OP with a Mog Fanatic. I'm going to do my best not to have to bolt that guy, although for the sake of the aforementioned curve, we certainly could. But I think we have to play more optimistically than that. We've also drawn Terminate, huh? Alright, so it's looking more and more like we are going to have to point something or other at the Mog Fanatic, but I am still just going to play Tsabo's Web. We're going to go ahead and get that down. We're going to see another card before turn 3 comes that way. We might just be able to kind of brick the Fanatic with a Hippie. Between that prospect and the prospect of them, of playing the Web, we might have them play out into our removal a little bit more. We do also kind of want to, on the other hand, hold up a kill spell for Ball Lightning on the opponent's following turn, so like playing a Hippie is kind of bad in that regard, although it's okay on the play, okay against Mog Fanatic. It's a lot less okay against the Lava Man, but again, we've got the kill spell lined up for that guy. So, Terminate the Fanatic, or rather, terminate the Lava Man. Hold up Lightning Bolt. Alright, so they go straight to attacks without playing a Ball Lightning. I'm still not going to bolt the Fanatic here, because next turn, we can play the Hippie to block the Fanatic and still be holding up Lightning Bolt if they don't present another, you know, Grim Lavamancer or some other must-kill target. And indeed, it is the Lava Man. Alright. Bolt him on the end step, because we may need to double spell next turn depending on our draw. Cabal Therapy. Nice. Exactly what I was thinking of. That and Duress, but since we have Therapy rather than Duress, we are going to have to take our best guess, and it probably should just be Ball Lightning here. I like that in general, now that we're out of removal. I also like that because we could draw Duress for higher curve non-creature spells, you know, in the next turn or two before they can cast them. So yeah, let's go Ball Lightning. We get one. Nice. Alright, so the remaining hand is Pup, Fire Blast, Incinerate, Lightning Bolt. So we play out a Hippie. It is going to die to the Bolt. So we could flash back with Therapy, I guess, to maybe take Jackal Pup? But I think I'd rather just force them to point a Bolt at the board. And play another Hippie and take it from there. Alright, OP does nothing, so they are holding up Incinerate, and we've drawn Lava Man. Alright, well, nothing to it but to do it. We'll just play out our guys, and Incinerate will take care of one of them. And we'll see what happens with the other. It's probably just going to be Hippie gets incinerated, Lava Man gets Fanaticked, if they don't. Oh, okay, so they do that before. I was going to say if they don't draw a different answer. I thought they might take a draw step at least, but they just go for the more obvious play, which again, you know, I think this is okay-ish for us. They've got the Pup to follow up. We've got a deck full of answers to that and things that outclass it. No such luck. We do have Cabal Therapy instead. Coming in slightly the wrong order. Obviously, it would have been nice to clear the way for a threat to stick. But we'll still use it. We still know it can hit Fire Blast, and that'll be the move, I guess. They have another Fanatic and a Lightning Bolt. Yeah, they're drawing really well, actually, I would say. Being stuck on 2 lands has not punished them like it often would. Alright, so they come across for 2, they play the Fanatic, holding up Lightning Bolt, still no 3rd land. Yeah, we're just flooding here. Hate to see it. Well, I think in general Machine Head kind of lines up poorly against Sligh. Like, we have that painful land base unlike Moneyball, we have threats that are kind of small. Unlike, you know, the Rocks of the world, we don't have the life gain potential of white. We do have Curse Scroll now. Nice find, nice find. And I don't know quite why they didn't attack with Mog Fanatic last turn, but we'll take it. Every point of damage obviously matters. It's still too little too late, I'm pretty sure. But we do get to scroll the Pup for 2. Tag OP and play a land. But here comes at least 1 bolt on the end step. We're at a virtual 5 and they have 3 cards in hand. Again, it's just going to be too little too late here. Another Mog Fanatic, yep. Yep, these Fanatics have been really good for them, all in all. We got Withered Wretch, huh? Alright, let's try it. So we're just trying to control the board. OP, of course, pings in response. So theoretically, Wretch is breaking the Fanatic, and then, you know, they could just have a bunch of uncastables in hand. Odds of that are extremely low. They do make the third land drop. Now they got a scroll of their own, okay. Yeah, that's gonna be GG. That's gonna be GG, we assume. Graveborn Muse. Yeah, why not? Why not a little life loss here? Also an uncastable if we're scrolling. Well, my friends, I'm afraid we have a lot of bad cards in this matchup and not that much to do in the side. That's why we might consider a card like Rejuvenation Chamber in the side. It's definitely a lot poorer than the cards we're playing, but we might need the dedicated slot. That said, Phyrexian Furnace is a good one, and we're going to play Engineered Plagues as well. And then I think the 2 Phyrexian Arenas have to go, and then we would love to cut Graveborn Muses. I mean, Hippie's pretty underwhelming, but I guess all 4 will stay in on the play. And we could easily cut some of our extra copies of Tsabo's Web as well. I'll just play with only 1 Graveborn Muse. We'll go all in on the web just as a cantripper, and... You know, against the versions of Burn or Sligh that play perhaps Pyrostatic Pillar, and certainly the ones that play Mishra's Factory, Web is actually going to be pretty good. Here, yeah, again, not the strongest. So the good news is we've got all basic lands in our hand, no pain, unlike last game. The bad news is we don't make red, at least not yet. So OP's got a Price of Progress, speaking of the land structure, and then Lightning Bolt, Double Incinerate, Curse Scroll. Easy take a scroll here, it's an incredible one against us. And to that end, I don't know how many they play, but maybe Overload is better than some bad cards, so probably an oversight on my part, but again, we nab 1 luckily on the play with Duress, and then if there's a game 3, I guess probably bringing in both Overloads. But regardless, another Lightning Bolt. It'll be good if we draw a Mountain, right? But until then, let's Therapy, getting a 2-for-1, or maybe even a 3-for-1. Why not? Let's aim high with Incinerate. No 3-for-1. They do have a Lava Man now. A little scary, what with our lack of red and a 2-2 that we're about to present. And they do play him out. All right. So let's see an answer, or let's see they're missing red. Instead, we just draw another Hippie. Yeah. So I don't think we can afford not to take action here. So I'm going to play a Hippie and just flash back with Therapy. It's the best we've got. If they bolt us in response, then we'll just take Price of Progress. Again, not very exciting, but as the game goes on... It is some sort of a trade. Okay, they have an Overload as well. That's good to know about. So a little good intel as well. But obviously, I mean, we just draw the red that we're missing. We tag the Lava Man before he does too much damage to us, and then we can reasonably start getting there. Naturally, it is the basic swamp rather than the basic mountain that we see. Granted, we only have 2 mountains, but we've got all 4 Bloodstained Mire, 4 Sulphurous Spring, Tainted Peak as well. An opponent just drew Incinerate. Yeah, they're gassed up, and they're continuing to gas out in Game 2 just like they did in Game 1. So, opponents, again, they're on a deck that's a tough matchup for us, but they're also presenting a very, very good progression. They're not giving us any room to breathe. Basic swamp off the top. You couldn't make it up, guys. Alright, OP, it gets in for 1 since their graveyard is dwindling, and we find Untuco Shade. Alright, well, that's a guy that rewards us for having a host of swamps, I suppose. And they can definitely beat it with, on this turn where we're partially tapped out with a combination of burn plus Lava Man activation. They just go for the end step Incinerate. Okay. So, Shade will trade with the Incinerate that they cast on the end step. Survive, live to tell the tale, but only briefly, because then the Lava Man will finish him off. And again, I mean, this is something that can happen to you in this format when you're playing a two-color deck. It's not a trivial consideration. We've had the kill spell for this guy since the jump, and just can't cast him. And there's a Terminate, so that's enough for me. I mean, I know we can still play, but that is just a little bit of a demoralizing one. Oh well, this'll happen. Alrighty, OP mulls down to 6 on the play, and then kicks it off with Island into Sleight of Hand. Nice underrated Odyssey Island over there. So, I do not know what we're necessarily against, but I do think that getting one of our 2 Lava Men down probably makes the most sense in a vacuum. I will say that our hand is probably not that well configured against a lot of sleight of hand decks, unless our Wretch sticks and they care a lot about the graveyard. But there's another one. Flooded Strand and go, huh? Alright, well, all we're drawing is lands, so obviously we're playing a threat this turn. Let us therefore begin by attacking for 1. Alright, Lava Man eats a plow. Fair. I'm gonna go Withered Wretch here. 'Tis the type of deck that could be packing some AKs. But they will say go. Alright, we've got a Duress. We'll definitely take that one here. Seems really good, actually. Really well-timed Duress, so swing out for 2. OP takes the hit. Duress you. Lots of different options with which to follow this up, but we'll see what happens. Counterspell, sure. So now, I think we just get Lava Man and scroll down. We ignore the graveyard for a single turn. We spread the effects this way. Obviously, something like Wrath of God would be pretty rough, but would not be the very end of the world. Alright, OP does not make a 4th land drop, at least yet. They portented, and then shuffled. So they're obviously trying to find such a thing, one imagines. But I think we have no choice but to all in. Our hand wants us to, and our curse scroll, for that matter, wants us to as well. So, attack for 3, play an Intuko Shade, hold up the Wretch activations, hold up Lightning Bolt, say go. Another Portent, so opponent doing a lot of selecting, but it does not seem like they're finding the right cards regardless. Obviously, this could change on a dime, but they have had to spin their wheels kind of a fair amount here. They're icing down our Tainted Peak just in hopes of drawing. Well, I will bolt in response. We could have retched in response and then still held up the bolt and concealed that. We save a life this way. I don't think it matters either way. The opponent's conceding to the lack of land drops despite that many looks so unlucky, for sure, for OP. It just seems like blue-white control. I'm just not really used to seeing that deck play sleight of hand so much, but that's what we're thinking. So, Red Blasts, Gloom, Dystopia. It's probably about it. Maybe Soul Rend, maybe Phyrexian Furnace, maybe even Overload. We just haven't necessarily seen enough to validate those selections just yet. And in terms of what we don't like so much, again, it depends a lot on their variant, and we just haven't seen enough. So, yeah, I think I'm going to leave Soul Rend and Furnace on the bench, and I think I'm going to trim Terminate, but not cut it all together, trim a Lightning Bolt, trim a single Cabal Therapy, trim a Tsabo's Web. I mean, they could be land still. You know, there's a lot of different things, sub-variants they could be, where, you know, the trim that we're making here, there, and other places is not correct. I'll trim a Wretch as well. And we don't want to be too reactive, so, like, I could trim an Intuko Shade. I don't think I will. Let's go like this. One each of Edict and Terminate. Again, the bolts. Of course I'm worried about things like Exalted Angel, right? But, like, we do have Dystopias in there, but we do still need to leave some amount of hard removal, I think. And so, since we don't know as much about their deck as we would like to, I think trimming around the edges, being slightly more conservative with what we do put in, is probably the move. Well, it's only a 2-lander, but we've got the Web, which we're here to test for sure, and we've got a lot of things to like. It's a definite keep, even though it is not a threat, not a hand that contains a threat. And it still isn't after our first draw step of Lightning Bolt, but we do get to Duress. There is indeed an AK. It's Gro-A-Tog? Didn't really look like it, but I guess kind of it does in retrospect. I just did not see anything other than blue-white control cards, besides, again, that sleight of hand. So, alright, play for the long game, take the gush. They're going to be, to some degree, afraid of Cabal Therapy. They may therefore run out the Dryad. We may therefore get to Lightning Bolter. That'd be great. They're respecting their life total by leading on Gemstone Mine to do that, rather than City of Brass as well. So this is all working out pretty well for us, I think, so far. And yeah, here's a nice Lightning Bolt before you get too big for your britches, followed up with a Curse Scroll. Again, this is why I sideboarded conservatively, because we didn't know quite exactly what we were against. Now, maybe the one thing I'll say is maybe I should have known that based on the sleights of hand, right? But let's play a Tsabo's Web. It's not as exciting here by any means as it would be against a lot of real blue-white control decks, right? So, unfortunate, because again, we're kind of here to see this card, but will opponent compete over it? Maybe. They're looking to AK in response. That'll resolve. And then so too will our Web. Our hand is City of Brass and 3 unknowns. We now have another Lightning Bolt. That actually seems good here, now that we are in a different matchup than we thought we were. Alrighty, Graveborn Muse, huh? Yeah, let's go for it. It could easily eat removal or permission, but it's going to rot in hand otherwise, making the scroll worse. This is as good a time as any to go for it. Realistically, we won't have another better spot for a while, I think. So Muse will resolve. There's no end-step Plow. It could be they just didn't want to tick down Gemstone Mine to do that. We'll see. They do play City of Brass, finally. If we get to untap with Muse, that would be incredible. It's not doing our Scroll any favors, but that is, like, Scroll is now a distant plan C compared to the other things we're up to. A couple lands off the top, not the greatest, but cannot really complain. And we're in for 3. Beautiful. You see, you know, you don't even need to know what you're playing against, and this deck is still good. It's kind of funny. But they might... Oh. What makes them want to tap Gemstone Mine, City of Brass? They're not hard casting Gush, are they? They are. Okay. I mean, to me, that seems a little desperate, and therefore I think maybe I should actually just Pyroblast. Again, remember, we kind of want to use cards because we have a scroll on the field and we're drawing 2 per turn. So I'm going to follow that. I'm going to follow that incentive here. Another thing is they could have a reactive card like Blue Blast in hand, so this is a good chance to beat that, right? Alright, so we win that battle. We'll see if we win the war. OP goes Sleight of Hand. Again, note to future self, Sleight of Hand does probably, like I said at the beginning, I don't think blue-white control usually plays that, but that's all I was seeing. And then they opt to the bottom. That's a lot of selection. We know that didn't work out that well for them last time. And they're not growing anything right now in so doing. They do have an AK. Obviously, that's pretty good. And it's not crazy to use our Lightning Bolt here on the end step just to go upstairs, but I don't think I probably should. But it's at least worth considering. But now, let's just untap. We'll keep seeing cards with Muse. We'll keep that around for removal purposes. Cabal Therapy. Alright. And another land. So our top of the deck hasn't been the greatest since we stuck the Muse, but that's not her fault. She's doing the Lord's work here, my friends. We have no hand knowledge whatsoever. So we probably do kind of have to therapy here. Do we, though? Maybe we don't have to therapy here. Like, we are putting the pressure on them, right? So while we could therapy here, and I don't think it'd be wrong, let's just actually say go. Because we're going to have ample time to, and mana, for that matter, to double, triple spell, whatever it's going to be, on a crucial upcoming turn. Again, we're just, like, not even getting close to maximizing scroll this way. And I don't know if we should be, like, if hand information versus the chance, small chance at 2 damage matters, how we weigh that. We'll have to keep all these things in mind and just see what they do. Tapping City of Brass for red after they played a Plains, tapping that as well. Red and white. Firing the Muse, 1 and 1. Yep, I guess they've got another fire rolled up. That's one way to get there. But the Muse... Oh, a Pyroclasm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, too. The Muse with a lot of, got a lot of X for ones in there, didn't she? You'll love to see that. And then it's Portent. Alright. So this is shaping up to be a better turn to Cabal Therapy, because we were not about to name Pyroclasm or Fire Ice. With a Therapy, they do shuffle, so they're blind drawing. Yeah, let's start trying to get lucky with Scroll. So, hold on. Cancel that. Maybe we're supposed to Lightning Bolt them first and then try to get luckier with Scroll. Or have a higher chance of getting lucky. So yeah, let's do that. We're going to Lightning Bolt and then we're going to Scroll. Naming Therapy. It's a little risky to still throw that card away, but... Cabal Therapy is the name, and instead we reveal Sulphurous Spring, so at least we've concealed the Diabolic Edict. Alright, we play Springs. Now let's Therapy, and I think we probably just name Gro-A-Tog here. That could be the scariest draw for turn. Hydroblast. I got it. Okay. Both players flooding here. If they can find a big mirror-breaking top deck, that would be obviously pretty scary, but we do have, again, that Gro-A-Tog covered. So now we gotta keep trying to get lucky with the scroll. If we reveal the Diabolic Edict, so be it. I'm going to name Bloodstained Mire, though. 0 for 2 on the scrolls now. You hate to see it. And a land for turn, man. Man, this is brutal, actually. Like, we should be finishing them off basically by now, whether by hitting once with the scroll into other stuff, keeping them teetering on the edge, or whether by just, like, drawing actual action. But I still think we're quite favored to get here. But if the opponent puts together a nut draw off the top from here, then we'll have lost our opportunity. But they're also flooding, so flood favors the Cursed Scroll, obviously. Kyrian Dryad, sure. So now we get to guarantee our scroll hits, right? And this is at the risk, of course, of them, like, ripping Gro-A-Tog off the top and we don't have an answer to it. But Edict the Dryad while their Hydroblast routes in hand. Finally get a scroll hit in. Alright, play the Springs, say go. We could play Dystopia, we could not. I'm not sure what's better here, and either way, opponent just scoops. So, good games, well played. Again, didn't quite know what we were against, but the flexibility of our deck, I guess, was demonstrated here. Even though we were sided a little bit more for straight blue-white control or something similar to that than we were for Gro-A-Tog, we still actually got there pretty strongly, pretty cleanly. Good stuff. Alright, my friends, those were today's matches. I got good news and bad news. The good news is the deck actually felt really strong, clean, coherent. A lot of fun, actually, playing this one, and it felt pretty balanced to me. The bad news is that we didn't really run into very many situations or matchups in which Tsabo's Web was actually all that relevant. Now, if you look at the top of the meta, you definitely have roughly half the decks that seem pretty soft to Tsabo's Web. So that was just kind of an unfortunate run insofar as that is concerned, but that is not the entire premise of the deck, is that you have to find Web in steal games with it, and we showed that today because, as mentioned, Web was a little bit of an afterthought overall, and the rest of the deck carried it pretty well through, and Web contributed just by being, again, that high floor card that opponents do sometimes get hosed by, but otherwise it's just a 2-drop, and you keep going, and you keep finding things to curve out with. So, I hope you guys like this. I will run either this or maybe like a 3-color Worm deck back pretty soon. Whether it's this or the Worm deck featuring Web, we're going to get some more action out of Web. We're going to see the real GG from Tsabo's Web that we didn't see quite so much today. But again, I'm really happy with the performance, almost especially considering that, right? So I hope you guys had fun here. Thank you so much for watching. If you do like this content, if you value it, if you want to see it continue, you can donate directly on Patreon or by leaving a super thanks, becoming a channel member. Appreciate anybody doing such things. And if you're buying or renting cards, physical cards go to Mana Pool, and rented digital MTGO cards go to Mana Traders. You can use my affiliate link for either one and help out your boy. Thank you very much again, guys, and I will see you next time. Of course, I want you to leave me your thoughts on this list and your thoughts in general on whether Tsabo's Web is a bit underplayed in our beloved black-based mid-range strategies. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.